Hello, everybody. Welcome to Cubs Brawl, the away games podcast, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who live in New York and might be able to start doing comedy soon. Who knows? I am one of them. My name is Adam Amawala. I'm here with Kevin McCaffrey. How's it going, man?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm. Are you? When is the last time you did a in-person comedy thing? Which is
Mm,
our job, besides obviously making massive amounts of money off the,
right,
I
right,
say,
right.
fourth most popular Cubs podcast.
I did actually do Stand Up New York was doing like these punk rock
Mm,
shows like
right.
on the one train. So
Oh,
I did a
weird.
show on a train in a mask.
Okay. How was
Yeah.
that?
Better than you'd think.
Okay. Yeah. I bet.
But still, it was like I'm glad I did it because I will never forget having performed on a subway car.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but the amount that I have lowered the bar for what constitutes a good show, like
Yeah.
it's
Bar
it's
wasn't
pretty
high to
wild.
start with.
It was not. It was not. To our listeners who don't know much about the stand-up world and how it's been affected by COVID, uh, there are places in the country where it's still happening as if COVID never existed. But for much of the country, including New York, like the only shows have been outside. And Kevin, I don't know if you did any of them last year, but like I spent a lot of last summer performing just in the park. Like I was in Central Park, like screaming into a field.
Yeah, I did almost none of those. I did a couple of outdoor shows, but I didn't
Yeah.
do but yeah, I didn't do any specifically Central Park or Astoria Park ones. But yeah.
Yeah. So, like, we, not that we had such high standards before, but like, I think Kevin would agree that, like, usually our bar was like, oh, you're doing a show at a bar, and like, the bar owner won't turn off the sound on the Yankees game. Like, this is going to be rough. And then last year it was just like, I am willing to perform in broad daylight in shorts with no microphone because this is all that's available to me.
Please look at me. Yeah, basically.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
if there's any indication, any better indication of how much comedians need attention, it is the fact that we were willing to perform in those circumstances.
Oh, sure. And just as a standard, like if you look at me, okay, that's a big point for in favor of that that park
Yeah,
or outdoor show. But
totally.
yeah, it could be coming up relatively soon.
Hopefully.
A
And if
lot
you
of
want to look at us,
yeah.
follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and
Follow
Instagram.
us at Away Games Pod. And hey, we have a lot of Cubs fans who are Bears fans, so congrats on Andy Dalton. I know
Jesus
it's
Christ.
it's. I mean, you know, it's Andy Dalton is a great signing. If you like having Nick Foles so much, you want another one. Like
Hmm.
if you just want to fill your team with Nick Foleses, then
Yeah.
this is basically Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is the Nick Foles of Jeff Hostetler's. I'll say Jeff Hostetler's a bit of a throwback, but
Oh my
yeah,
God.
but that's the Bears news. The Cubs news is that we're getting closer to opening day on April 1st, and it's time to get a little closer to who's actually on the roster. And there are a decent amount of question marks at the outside of this thing.
There are. Do you want to start with what you're looking at in terms of like fringe people?
Fringe people, there's a lot. So the most annoying thing, and this is for everyone who remembers the Chris Bryant, how many years do the Cubs have him for arbitration
Hmm.
that went on for years?
Yeah.
There's a similar thing going on with Adbert Alzolay, and he we don't know if Alzolay has a an option this year,
Hmm.
and he is one of the ones that has not looked as sharp this year. But it really depends on whether he has an option because the Cubs have their five starters even without Alzolay, and I think we both prefer for him to have a locked in spot there among
Right.
the top five. But Trevor
Well,
Williams, yeah,
but real quick, like if you're picking between him and Mills, who do you
yeah.
prefer having the rotation spot?
I mean, it's a good question, and I think I would be in favor of just going full six man rotation. But
Hmm.
I think right now you probably would have Mills in there because Adbert has not looked he's not looked as sharp. And the main even beyond that, I don't really care about that. I think the thing is you can't really bank on him throwing. If he throws 120 innings this year, you
Hmm.
are going to feel like that's fairly successful. So how do you spread out those innings? Because he's not going to make 32 starts over the course of this year. Like,
Right.
it's going to be trouble for a lot of pitchers, but Adbert has just never pitched that much. Like, even in his minor league seasons, almost everyone an injury would derail him for a while. So just in
Hmm.
terms of an innings load. So I think it does make sense to sort of ramp him up and deploy him as a multi-inning reliever. But if we're doing him as a multi-inning reliever early in the season, I would want him on a bit of a schedule, like a starter's schedule to piggyback, you know?
Well, I guess that's my follow-up question is, would you prefer, it sounds like you're in favor of a six-man rotation, but would you be open to the idea of like a Mills, Alzolay, Mike Montgomery, Eddie Butler situation?
Yeah, I would, and I think I think that almost has to be something they're leaning more towards. And the thing is, if he comes through and he still has an option remaining, I think there's a good chance they just let him work out in at the alternate site for a while and see if a need arises, and then get him into this rotation. Adbert's going to be one of the five main starters on this team, uh, hopefully very soon in this season, if not for the whole thing. So if he has an option, there's a good chance that they just leave a roster spot open and send him down there. But we don't know if he has an option yet. And again, how is this not a thing that can be decided in a fucking week? I don't know. How can it even come to this? Who
It's
knows?
at the point where they're like going to retroactively decide that there should have been a DH in 2021,
Yes.
2 years from now.
Yes,
We just wanted
exactly.
to make the ruling that, there
Right.
was, but it just wasn't enforced yet.
They're going to undo this year of control of Chris Bryant, and it's going to turn out he never existed. It's just going to
Oh
be
my
some
God.
sort of ethereal, like fourth dimension kind of stuff. But if he doesn't have that option to be sent to the minors, of course he's on the major league team. You're not risking
Right.
losing a guy who has a higher upside out of than anyone else in your rotation for even this year, probably everyone except for Hendricks. I mean, this is a guy with great stuff. We saw who misses bats in a way that almost no one else in this rotation does. So that's a big question right now, is the Adbert option. And
One question I have about the six-man rotation, and I'd be interested to get your take on it, is that like in my mind, if you start the season with a six-man rotation, you're kind of setting that precedent in terms of like how much rest each starter is expecting to get between starts.
mhm,
Now, inevitably, at some point, some starter or perhaps multiple starters are going to get injured.
mhm.
Are you handcuffing yourself a little bit by starting with a six-man because then you don't have some like if you want to maintain that there's a six-man rotation, then you're going to have to be looking for someone to fill those spots if people get hurt. Whereas if you start with five, then you have one person who's an outlier who can like kind of easily jump in if somebody goes down.
Right. I think, yeah, I think what you would do in that situation is just go back to a straight 5 day. So it would be a change. But with days off, guys go one day off the number of days of rest
Yeah.
anyway, so that's not too big a deal. Also, they're just not doing a six-man rotation, so that won't be happening. But when you see Trevor Williams looking as good as he does. I mean, he is in the ERA at spring training, sure, but you want the guys to do well. And Trevor has an ERA right at 1 right now. He's struck
Yeah.
out Mookie Betts. He struck twice, I think. He struck out Mike Trout. These are good things. So it looks like Trevor is now has moved from the guy who is at a fringe 5-6 to almost, you would say, the 4 right now. He seems to be a lock for that rotation. So the other thing is that Shelby Miller looks really good.
Right.
Shelby Miller, who was great in 2015, but he is a guy who is still only 30 years old, and he's added a new slider in, and he looks really good.
He was in the Dansby Swanson deal, right?
Yes, he was the key to the Dansby Swanson deal. One of the most silly one-sided trades of the era. It was Shelby.
I mean, James Shields for Tatis is still worse, but that's not
Absolutely.
Swanson and Miller are not. It's not great.
Yeah, it was Shelby Miller for Dansby Swanson and Ender Ender Inciarte, and
Mm-hmm.
one other dude who I'm blanking on at the moment. But Shelby Miller, what we know is he has an option. He has an opt out for mid-April at some point. So if he doesn't make the roster, he will have the choice to leave and go shop himself elsewhere if he wants. So that's also a consideration.
He's a real Dan Heron ass signing. It's like a
Yeah.
guy you would have been like, you would have lost your mind for 5 years ago.
Several years ago, yeah, exactly. And he does have some upside left. So I think the Shelby Miller deal, no matter what happens, it's a good swing. It's a good swing at something significant. And I think it might take some creativity to see if what they can do to get him to stay around, or maybe he just breaks camp with the team.
Right. And I mean, those are the exact kind of signings that you need to make when you have claimed that you have no money.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
At least take some flyers on some people, like like Ryan Dempster, or that in the way that they've done that in the past, and it's worked out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the most interesting border of the roster stuff going on is with these relievers, because Rex Brothers looks great again, and I think Rex Brothers is inching his way towards. I'm expecting him to make the roster, and that isn't something you would have expected coming into spring training, but he's 95 to 97 from the left side. He's had good results. It seems like he's always had great stuff. He just has had trouble with command, and it seems like that's been better. And that's not just been better this spring, but he was dominating at the alternate site last year too. So the Cubs have had a good look at him for a while now. So I think Rex Brothers is looking like he's going to take that second lefty spot, besides cowboy ass looking Andrew Chafin.
It also looks like your boy Mary Poppins character PJ Higgins might break with the team, especially if Romine isn't ready.
Yes, if Romine's not ready, I think you will have PJ Higgins the next man
up.
Just
you wait, PJ Higgins. Just you wait.
Yes, he's that third catcher, and right now it looks like he looks good. So I think that wouldn't be too bad. I think one thing to note with the relievers, Jonathan Holder, who for a good long time this offseason was the only major league signing in the whole division for $750K. Jonathan Holder does still have minor league options. So that
surprises me. Yeah.
Right. You have a major league signing that apparently you can send to the minors without losing him. So I think that just the depth of the Cubs bullpen right now, there's a lot of guys who are interesting who you don't want to lose. So I think that works against Holder. And I think Sahadov said something like that in a piece today over on The Athletic. But I would almost expect him to start in the minors, because Dillon Maples, who has completely changed his look, his arm swing is a lot shorter. He's a lot tighter now. His slider doesn't swing as much. It's a tighter spin slider, but the command's been there, and Dillon Maples is out of options. So you've got him that is another guy you don't want to lose. Him and Shelby Miller are probably the guys that are thinking most about trying not to lose there. And you've got
and you know what? I feel like other people have made this point, but like it feels like Maples is that guy in the Cubs organization who they are really afraid to let him go, and then he's going to latch on somewhere else and be like a dominant closer, and someone's going to unlock what the Cubs have been trying to unlock for years now.
And I think the last few years, it was just a lot of hoping Maples would get better, and I'm sure they were working on things, but now this offseason, he changed his motion. Like there's different stuff happening here. You can tangibly see it.
Right.
And he's old for a guy who's coming up from the minors. He's 29, but Jason Adams 29, and Jason Adams didn't really have a breakout till a couple years ago too. And now you're looking at, he's your next man up behind Kimbrel probably. So yeah.
And it's not unheard of for a pitcher to kind of bounce around until they figure out what their role needs to be. I mean, look at Andrew Miller.
Right. Andrew Miller was a bust. He was a first-round bust for a while, and then he became, one of the most important relievers in baseball for a couple of years. So yeah, there's a lot of, and Trevor McGill looks good, but he'll probably start in the minors because he can. And then Brad Wick is coming back. Ryan Tepera is starting slowly, but he is also in the mix here. So I feel good about the Cubs.
MVP nominee, right?
MVP vote getter. He really should have put that into his contract going forward, a big bonus for a single MVP vote. It is, because some dudes do have that as a weird bonus, and it can just happen by accident. So yeah, I guess the thing is with this bullpen, I feel good about it. I think it'll be a good bullpen. It's just trying to fit the right guys in there without losing one.
How worried are you about Kimbrel?
Probably more worried than I am about anyone else. Have you seen any of his outings so far?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
not. It doesn't look good.
No, it's the velocity's not as high. I mean, he's a guy who it takes time to build up. But the last couple of years, we've said like, oh, it was a weird spring training last year. The year before that, he didn't sign to the middle of the year. So there are
Right.
reasons for that weirdness. We thought it's a normal year right now. And I mean, that being said, this is when you're building up. So
Mhm.
trying not to be too worried about it, but it looks like he can't find the plate, and when he does, it's hammered, which is a really weird combination that a non-baseball player like me has trouble understanding.
Who at this point? I mean, obviously, hopefully, we don't have to even have this discussion. But like, who steps into the closer role if he really struggles this year? Like, who do
It
you think is most? Because obviously, Rowan Wick is not going to be ready to start the season. It looks like
seems like Wick's not going to be ready to start the season. I mean, I think Jason Adam is next man up. I mean, in
more
terms
so
of
than Workman.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point. Is if you're going based on guys the closing experience thing, I
Right.
think Brandon Workman is probably next up, and Workman looks fine this spring so far, and he's a lock for the bullpen, and I think that was a, that
Hmm.
was a good and interesting signing. And Rex Brothers has saved games before too. Rex Brothers has been a closer, but I think I think Jason Adams' stuff is just kind of nastier and weirder than everyone else in this bullpen right now. And I think he really fits the Cubs' philosophy, the way they like to attack. He's got the spin kind of stuff that they like working with. He's got that short arm thing that's deceptive. I think outside of Kimbrel, most likely for the most saves this year, I would say is Jason Adam. But you could also see, I think, as you're saying, Brandon Workman being the first guy
Hmm.
they would slide in there. Hopefully, we don't need it, but yeah.
Also, I don't know if you saw this, but Jeremy Jeffress was released in kind of like a strange way. Do we know more about what happened there?
No, do you want to tell people about it? Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't have a ton of like concrete information to report. It's just that he had been signed by the Nationals, and then was released in a way that, like, he was on Twitter, kind of talking about how it went down, and being. Again, I don't want to report like misinformation here. It seemed like there was something going on like with his agent, maybe,
Yeah,
um, and saying like, oh, after this long of working with somebody, like they showed who they really are, and I think that tweet has been deleted, but it was kind of an odd thing.
he tweeted at Joshua Kusnik, and he said, at Joshua Kusnik, just ruined my life. I've been nothing but a great friend and client to him for over 10 years. Thanks, buddy. And someone replied by saying, agent simply got you a bad deal after a solid season, question mark. And then Jeffress said, he is not even my agent anymore. And then there was a lot of tweeting around. Jeffress last tweet before that said, I'm not what they say I am. I'm what God says. I don't deserve the false negativity. And the and yeah, Washington released a very brief statement saying he was released for personnel reasons, not personal. It said personnel the way they spelled it, and I'm like, is this a
The
typo?
the,
What?
the press
Like,
release said it's nothing personnel.
yeah, yeah, basically. So it's just like it is suspicious and kind of worrisome about a guy who we've known to be. He's had some trouble in the past, but he, as far as we know, has been just a model citizen
Do
and
you
like
think it could be like a COVID breach sort of thing? Like they found out he was like partying with people, sort of thing. I don't know what else that would imply.
I know. Well, that's the thing is I don't think there's been enough guys who've done that. I mean, Pedro Strop even recently, and that's another
Right.
name we didn't talk about for the bullpen too. But I think I feel like there's enough other people that it wouldn't have been that big a deal. It wouldn't have been an immediate release, and it wouldn't have been Jeffress saying that this guy ruined his life. And I haven't been able to find anything else online about it. But we hope
Yeah, it's weird.
hope Jeremy's doing okay, and hope he does well. And I mean, he's a free agent, so it is
Right.
curious. Where I mean, maybe it'll be a thing where he waits a little longer into the spring now, or waits for a couple of people to go down with normal injuries, and then his market will pop back up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that was a guy who we absolutely would have been great with seeing come back into the fold, and it looks like the Cubs just went with Workman instead of Jeffress.
Right.
Yeah. On the bat, on the side with the bats, there was a bit of a surprising thing in Sahadev's roster projection at the Athletic, where it seems like he is expecting Cameron Maybin to not make the team now. Which Maybin was he's someone everyone on the team loves. He's like
Yeah.
really an
Excellent compound guest.
excellent compound guest, an all-pro clubhouse guy in general, and he's still not that old. He runs well. He plays good defense in the corners, can play center in a pinch, and he's like a right-handed extra bat in the outfield, which Jake Marisnick is as well, and Marisnick is ahead of him in the pecking order. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking Maybin is on this team, but it seems like what Sahadev is saying is that it's probably going to come down to one of these four guys: Eric Sogard, Ildemaro Vargas, Matt Duffy, or Rafael Ortega. And to me, I think I'd rather Maybin on the roster than any of those dudes.
Although you do love to see a walk-off grand slam even in a spring training game.
Yes. So that was very fun by Rafael Ortega. And yeah, I think, and I guess I don't know. I assume Ortega is here on a minor league deal still with options, but that could be possibly wrong. Out of those four guys, the guy I'm least interested in making this roster is Eric Sogard.
Yeah, at least Duffy is versatile.
Yeah. And like Sogard can play a couple positions too. They had him tried out at a shortstop the other day as well. But I mean, I think when you're talking about Eric Sogard, you're talking about the Cubs have talked so much about wanting to get contact in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have contact. Just contact doesn't do you much good. I think it's a bit of an overcorrection in the direction of trying to diversify your lineup,
Right.
but not actually making it better,
Eric Sogard has contact, but not contacts. His
Yes,
honestly, his appearance reminds me too much of Kevin Gregg, and I can't deal with it.
oh yeah, little throwback, just straight up glasses. Yeah. And they're good glasses, but I just of those guys, I'm least interested in Sogard. Ildemaro Vargas is a switch hitter, a little younger at least. Maybe there's a little more upside there, and he also is an extreme contact guy in his time at AAA. And yeah, Matt Duffy is a guy who I think finished second in Rookie of the Year vote behind
Yeah, he was on the
Bryant.
Giants, right?
Yeah. And he had I think he had one other good year in Tampa Bay. He's been up and down a little bit, but yeah, and Maybin is a guy I'd like to see around too. So
because I think you have to value what Maybin brings outside of baseball. That's not to say that if he's hitting 150 for the first month of the season, you just keep him around because he's a good clubhouse guy, but like hearing how the Cubs handled Steven Souza last year, literally cutting him in between games of a doubleheader, which is brutal. I don't know that had a good impact on the clubhouse. And you can't draw a direct line of like, oh, well, after they did that, the Cubs played poorly. But like that has to impact morale, right?
I think it does. And as you said, it's not like that's the prime thing you're thinking about here. And you're in bad shape if your clubhouse hinges on a guy who just joined the team at the end of last year anyway.
Yes. It's not like there's not Anthony Rizzo or plenty of other people who can fill that role, but like.
Yeah, I think if we see the Cubs going with an extra infielder here, one thing it might signify is that Bryant would get more time in the corners, and it signifies that they feel good about Jake Marisnick's health, who is already going to be your fourth outfielder there.
How do you feel about Bryant in the outfield?
I feel fine about it. I mean, I did not like that he got injured diving for a ball last year, but I mean, that's fluky, and he's been perfectly good in the corners whenever he's played there. So I'm fine with it. But I mean, I think the way I'd be fine with it most is if you're having him out there to get like Bodie and Horner in against a left-handed pitcher and sit Jock, and it seems like they're committing to Jock not sitting for the most part. Which I mean,
in so much as I was going to say, in so much as spring training matters, like Jock is as hot as it comes right now. So
yeah, he looks great. So this is all to say, it's a more interesting last couple of weeks in figuring out how to fit this roster together, this 26-man roster, without losing anyone who could be a real contributor for the rest of the year. It'll be interesting to see. And then Nico Horner has been dealing with a back issue a little bit. He's expected back today, hopefully. So we'll see how he looks there.
Nice.
Yeah. What else caught your eye this week in Cubs world?
In Cubs world, I feel like we covered it pretty well. I'll tell you one thing that caught my eye. This is just an outlier in baseball. Weird spring training stuff. Did you see the Luis Guillorme at bat against Jordan Hicks?
I did tell people about it.
So Luis Guillorme had he's on the Mets. He had a 22 pitch at bat against fireballer Jordan Hicks of the Cardinals, who has not pitched in 2 years because he had Tommy John, and then he opted out due to COVID last year. He's a type 1 diabetic, so it certainly makes sense for him to have done that. But in any case, it was, I think, his first appearance, certainly his first time, like, being on a mound in recent memory. And Guillorme just battled his way through a 22 pitch at bat, ended up drawing a walk. It was like a 12-minute at bat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was one of those times where and that's one of the cool things about baseball is that it can build, like in between each pitch. It starts out with just another spring training at bat, and by the end of it, his teammates are all on the top step. They're cheering every time he fouls the ball off. He's laughing. Jordan Hicks like has this kind of shit-eating grin when he gets taken out because, like, as you guys know, like innings can just end in the middle of them depending
Yes.
on pitch limits. And like I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like we were close to an inning ending mid at bat. Like it was getting to the
Right.
point where Hicks came in and faced one person and then left the game.
And if you're playing a video game and you're pitching and the guy keeps fouling balls off to the point where it's a 22 pitch at bat, you'd shut the game off. You'd be like,
Or you'd
this
hit him.
Yeah, yeah, or you just peg him and be like, screw this. So yeah, I mean, incredible, and it is fun watching the dugout celebrate a foul ball like it's a homer over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, a 22 pitch at bat, and you can look at the, you can go online and see what each pitch was, and it's a lot of 100 up to 102, I think, miles an hour, and it's batting cage stuff, and it's incredible.
It's pretty impressive to do that against a guy like Hicks who can pull a string on you, like
Mhm.
because you have to. I guess that's the approach against a guy like Hicks is that anything hard you just try to spoil and then wait till you get your pitch. But yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was yeah, that was one of the more notable things in spring training over the past
Here's
week.
my follow up about that is I have my answer, but who could you see on the Cubs having an at bat like that? Like if there were to be a Cub to have a 22 pitch at bat and then draw a walk, who would it be?
I mean, I think Nico's your first guess. It would
Yeah.
be my first guess.
Mhm.
Just because he's got the extreme contact ability. I could see Hayward doing it a little bit. I would like to see Wilson Contreras do it and
Yeah.
just absolutely be jacked out of his mind, whipping the bat to the moon as he walks.
Javi has gone full seasons without seeing 22 pitches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who's your pick for the 22 pitch batlin?
I feel like Rizzo, but weirdly, as good as his two strike
Mhm.
approaches, I feel like he manages to always put the ball in play. Like he just chokes up to the point that he'll like slap it somewhere and it wouldn't go that long. But like in terms of his eye and his approach, I could see that happening.
Yeah, Rizzo's the best approach on this team. Yeah, I think I would give his odds slightly lower because he squares up the ball more,
Yeah,
basically.
he would either put something in play or get hit in the elbow before it got to 22.
Yes, exactly. Rizzo fouls the ball. He would be the one to he would foul 22 balls off his like inner leg in a single at bat,
Yeah.
would be a terrible record to set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we were talking about Chris Bryant in the outfield. Bryant only made this public recently, and Evan Altman tweeted about this. But Chris Bryant played through an impact fracture in his left wrist last season, suffered on that diving play in the
Oh my
outfield when
God.
we were talking about him being in the outfield, and he had torn ligaments in his ring finger on the same play, and he didn't make that public until recently. So when you talk about how Chris Bryant looked awful last year for so long, and he did. Like, this is part of it. It's also part of the thing where we say, I think every year on this podcast, can you put Chris Bryant on the injured list when he's injured, please? It feels like
Right.
they never do that. It feels like he plays through things, making it worse and not succeeding, and then is put on an injured list, if at all, far too late. And
Right, and that's always the battle is like, do we hear that and say like, wow, what a tough guy, like kudos to him on playing through that, or do you say like, maybe don't be stubborn and admit that you're hurt, and rather than go out on the field and not do a good job because you want to play through it, which is admirable. Like admit to yourself, and the team should admit to themselves, like, this guy cannot help us right now because he's not right.
I think that's what it is, because I think Chris Bryant is saying, I'm going to try to play to the best of my ability, no matter
Mhm.
how much pain I'm in, whatever. I think it has to be on the team to say, this is not working and it's not best for anybody here. And I think the team has failed in that respect
Right.
with Chris Bryant specifically over and over, because I think it's the players. I mean, I don't think it can be the player's job to say I can't. That's just really not in the
Right.
DNA of especially great players, really.
Mhm.
But it should be in the team to say, we know you have these injuries. These are I mean, a wrist
Right.
fracture is basically impossible to hit with. We saw what happened
How do
to
you
Derek
how
Lee
do you
after the
check a
wrist.
swing? How do you
Oh,
check a swing with a broken wrist?
yeah, it's terrible, and you just hope it didn't do permanent damage on him. So yeah, it would be nice if they would use the injured list at some point with Chris Bryant when he is injured, if he is, and hopefully no more injuries for him.
Yeah.
um yeah, and another fun, just general baseball spring thing, Shohei Ohtani hitting another gigantic bomb over that center field
Unbelievable.
batter's eye. Yeah.
If he, I really, really hope that we as baseball fans get to see him have a full year where he's both pitching and batting.
Yeah, and I mean, this seems like it'll be the last year that we maybe get a chance to see that. Like, if it doesn't work this year, you might see the Angels try to more commit to one, but I really
Yeah.
hope I really hope he does.
I mean, just think of the idea of, and I don't think it'll happen this year, but like, imagine if the Angels made it to the World Series and we finally got to see Mike Trout in a World Series. We got to see Shohei both pitching and hitting in a World Series, and we got to see Madden and Fowler back. I would be all about it.
I watched some of the spring game that the Angels were playing yesterday, and it was in the first half of that lineup is just, I don't understand how they're never good. I mean, I know this isn't their
No
lineup
pitching,
every
I
year,
guess, but
but yeah, it's just like such a fun lineup. David Fletcher makes all the contact in the world. They had Shohei hitting ahead of Mike Trout. Anthony Rendon is behind there. You have Justin Upton there. Albert Pujols had a few doubles,
mhm,
and Dexter Fowler's at the bottom of that lineup. It's like that. I mean, if you can get pitching there, then I just don't understand how that lineup isn't better now at this
yeah,
point. But it's a fun team to watch. It's one of those as far
very
as
much so.
MLB TV watches when the Cubs aren't on.
Mhm,
That's they're, I think Padres are your number one probably go to
yeah,
this year, but Angels are on the list.
a lot of fun in California right now.
Yeah.
I feel like an Albert Pujols double at this point is just an inside the park home run for almost anybody else.
Yeah,
Like it is in the gap if it's a double
it
for Pujols.
looks difficult when he is moving at all. It
Yeah.
is it's real. In Mario Kart terms, he has the acceleration of Donkey Kong
Yeah.
but he has none of the top speed. It's just Donkey Kong trying to accelerate the whole time in Mario Kart. Yeah. Anything else?
No, man, I'm good. You?
Here's a trivia question for you. Besides the Cubs, what was the only what team in Major League Baseball played in a place called Wrigley Field? Played their home games in a place called Wrigley
Huh.
Field.
I do not. You're not even gonna give me options.
I can give you options.
No, that's
Uh,
okay. I have no idea. So
I'll give you three options.
okay.
The the Giants, the Dodgers, and the A's.
I'm gonna say
Speaking of California,
the Giants.
it is the Dodgers. The Dodgers
Ah.
played with Wrigley played at Wrigley Field. The Angels did a little bit too. But yeah, there used to be a place in California called Wrigley Field, and they had some of the old school home run derbies when Home Run Derby was a TV show. They would do those at
Huh.
Wrigley Field in Los Angeles.
Very cool. When did that exist?
Oh, a long time ago. Let's see. It was, I think. Let me do a quick Google.
I knew it wasn't the A's because I felt for some reason that there wouldn't be two consecutive weeks of trivia involving the A's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There very well could have been, but that was my
mhm.
logic.
Oh, yeah, Wrigley Field Ballpark in Los Angeles, California. Weirdly enough, hosted minor league baseball for 30 years, and yeah, let's see. It was demolished in 1969, but was around 1925 to 69.
Just around the time the Cubs were demolishing their chances at winning a World Series in 1969.
Yes, exactly. As we talked to Bob Newhart about a couple of weeks ago.
So
cool. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Away Games Pod. And next week, yeah, I mean, God, we are getting next week. It will be 1 week away from opening day.
Yeah, it's awesome. We have a couple weeks left. We will certainly do a season preview episode, likely with Ken Schultz, as we usually do. And in the meantime, as March Madness is beginning, if you want to play some fun prop bets on games and players and such, go to Thrive Fantasy. Use promo code AwayGames to get $20 with your first deposit of $20 or more, and have some fun.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you later.